Without much further ado, I would like to introduce our agenda for today. Today we have joining us our EVP Mr. Chris Batunan. Sir Chris, would you like to start off and kick off our webinar for this afternoon?
Okay, thanks, Arden. Hi, everyone. Hi, Simone. Hi, Ray. I'm not sure if I see Joanna in the call already, but I guess she'll be joining us shortly. For all the participants that are in the call, thank you very much for taking time to join us here. We hope that, you will find the event that we're preparing for you very much to your benefit, to your organization's benefit. So, and I really like, I really like that Arden allowed me to start off the opening remarks without showing my face. Now that he's showing me my face again, I'm quite surprised. This is the face that I'm using in the in the license, the driver's license. So it's quite a shock to me every time that I see it. But anyway, the pandemic really has shifted the way we think, and it also shifted the way we behave, not only as individuals but also as organizations. And we had to adapt to the changing times. But the underlying theme across all organizations really is about resilience. And this online event that we prepared for everyone right now it carries that theme forward. In fact, this is the ninth event that we've conducted already. But in terms of the customer journey, this is the third in a three-part journey that we believe every organization has had to take when the pandemic started and as it's continuing to unfold before us. So the first phase of the journey that we've shared in prior webinars was all about maintaining and increasing visibility and perhaps maybe adapting to the changing requirements of being able to operate as a business. And we've shared that through the Bayanihan series webinar in the second half of last year. And continuing on, when you've already gained visibility for your or created some kind of an audience for your organization during this time, and when you've already adapted your business operations to follow the regulations that are put forth within the country or the market that you're operating in, the second phase really is about creating opportunities for growth. And this requires organizations to, explore that which until recently was quite novel and quite new. Like we are all working remotely from each other when in fact we've been very used to being in front of each other and creating that network face to face. But now, since growth is very important and key for organizations in order to create that resilience of their organizations during times of crisis, we have had to engage with each other through the use of technology as well as through the use of information. And that's the second part of the journey that we've shared in previous webinars that we've had. The third phase is what we will talk about today. It is still deeply intertwined with the first two phases. In fact, what you would notice is that organizations move in and out of these various phases during the pandemic in order to create that kind of robustness of the organization. And it's critical as is the other two phases. It's as critical that we are able to implement these shall we say, strategies of supporting our own organizations. Now, CRIF Dun & Bradstreet has sought to explore how to manage that part, the third part of mitigating risk or managing cash flow in times of crisis. And therefore, this seminar that this webinar that we created for you focuses on specifically that. Now, to answer such a deep and complex question, we have invited several experts to provide you with different perspectives. So the first perspective is a global perspective, where, we have an advantage, or people will probably call that lucky. We're lucky to be part of the CRIF group, wherein we have a direct footprint in 30 countries across the globe. But even better is that we're also part of the network of the Dun & Bradstreet brand, wherein we also have a footprint in 190 countries and markets across the world. And therefore, that that advantage or that benefit or that blessing that we have allows us now to have access to insight across the world. And my friend and colleague Simone Rampichini, who is already in the call right now, will share insight on the payment behavior that we have observed around the world. And hopefully, it will shed light on what is perhaps different as well as what's common with Philippine businesses uh, and how it's how it's shared across the world. Um, we also have in the call that we'll be sharing a little bit later, a little bit zooming in into the Philippine business community. Professor Ray Lugtu will be sharing us his perspective on Philippine businesses, and I'm quite interested as well to hear from Professor Ray because he's specifically pointing out to a very important part of the Filipino culture, which is managing credit risk that and as it relates to relationships. And that's something that I'm quite excited to hear about, and I hope that you all are as well. And finally, I mean, zooming in even further, we have also invited a longtime participant to our credit information platform, which we call Duntrade. Now, for those that are unfamiliar, Duntrade is, shall we say, at its most at its core is simply a way for organizations to share with other organizations the payment behavior or payment habits of their customers, and therefore allowing them to gain that insight in terms of how they are being paid by their customers and comparing it with the other organizations as part of the platform. So we've done this in 2010. It's been quite an exciting journey for us as well in terms of growing the participants. And one of the participants, Ms. Joanna Abalos of DB&B, will be sharing with us her experiences in managing cash flow within her own organization, or sharing with us some of her best practices, so to speak, that she has done in terms of adjusting her organization to the pandemic. Now, in providing these three perspectives, we hope that you will find some crucial information that will benefit your own organization. And I'd like to, end this opening remark by saying, sit back, enjoy the rest of the event, and I will be with everyone shortly. Again, many thanks for everyone for being here, and I will look forward to speaking with you at the end of the event during the Q&A. Hi, Arden.
Thank you very much, Sir Chris. Late last year, CRIF, Dun and Bradstreet, have generated a payment study of companies not only here in the Philippines, but around the region. This is a free report that we have given to our customers. In fact, after this event, you will be receiving a copy of this report as well. The payment study gives us insight on the payment habits and behavior of some of the companies that our Duntrade participants have provided. To talk more about this payment study, we would like to welcome the for business information at CRIF, Mr. Simone Rampichini. Simone is joining us from Milan. Hi, Simone. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you so much. Let me share.
Privileges to share your screen.
Thank you so much. And good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for having invited myself to this meeting. I'm very happy to talk about what is happening as seen from a payment standpoint. First check, I would like to see if anyone can see the slide and if you can hear me well.
Yes, Simone, you're good.
Okay.
You look great.
So, I first talk about the payment study. Payment study is something that is happening since a long time. We are collecting in Italy what is the outcome of the Duntrade program that Dun & Bradstreet is running across the globe. So as you see from this very first slide, there are a lot of countries that are participating with payment information. What is very important to say is that this program is well established since 1972, and today, as of today, it's counting roughly 5 billion of payment transactions that have been collected every year. This is the typical payment study, and we will compare what happened in 2020 with a special edition that was issued, let's say, after the first wave of COVID. And in details, we will see what is the, let's say, the impact that you can measure looking at the payment performances. When we talk about payment performances, we talk about what the companies are, let's say, showing in the market as a way they are paying other companies. The country program is benefiting from the contribution of all the countries in which Dun & Bradstreet is present. The coverage is really huge. We will be able to really see what's happening in Asia, what's happening in Philippines, what's happening in Europe, and compare really what is the, let's say, the advantage probably of doing business in several parts of the world. Let me talk a brief about which is the data that is behind. At the end, when you have to measure if a company is paying on time or is paying late, you really need to look into what we call a payback score. That is a measure by which we are able to say that a company is 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 days late with the payment. As you see, this is really a way to summarize what is the payment performance that is really something you can detect analyzing all the transaction that this company is doing in the market that has registered through the data to the Dun Trade program. And these transactions are basically based on the invoices. So at the end, the last item that we're going to analyze is how a company is paying his invoices, his business invoices. We are really looking at the data that is no older of 12 months. So imagine that this is really a picture of what is happening in terms of average payment performance in the last period of a company against his supplier. These information are updated every month. Okay, quick notes. Quick notes about what you will see in the next slide is that when you will see the payment performances by size of the company, you will see this kind of aggregation: micro, small, medium, and large companies. And this is based, if you look at, if we want to compare a company across the world, we look at this way to clusterize companies. And then some notes about the data that you will see about Hong Kong, Philippines, and India, or Taiwan and Thailand, or Singapore, is something that is really, you can see here how everything is has been provided. There are some analyses that are skipped, such as, for instance, the industry of forestry, hunting, and fishing, for instance, in Hong Kong and Philippines, because those are not really significant in terms of figures. We will focus on to other industries that are more important. Okay, it is important to say that there are a lot of companies, a lot of countries that are contributing to this, and the coverage is basically given thanks to the presence of Dun & Bradstreet in the territories with all of his partners. Okay, let's get into what the situation that we are able to see in Asia. We are looking at the situation at mid of 2020. So we are looking at what happened after the first wave of COVID. We will see several graphs that are really detailing promptness of payment. So we are measuring how many companies are prompt on payment. So how many companies are really paying by the due date that they have agreed. And we will see as a benchmark how many companies are really paying late. So these are the two areas of focus on which we will put our attention on. So in this very first slide, we will see that those companies that are paying on time, if you look at, for instance, starting from Israel, going to Hong Kong, we'll see the percentage. So 70% of company in Israel are really paying on time. So if you're doing business in Israel, you may expect that 70% only of companies are paying on time on the due date that we have agreed. If you move to China, 23%. Thailand is higher, 38%. Taiwan, and we will see this also later, probably is the area, the territory in which companies are really paying on time as a large percentage. 74% of companies in Taiwan are really paying their invoices when you are expecting them. India 50%, Singapore 40%, Philippines 38.3%, Hong Kong 30.7%. We can drill down into details and really having a first comparison about what happened before the COVID, that is the blue line, and compare these with what happened after the first wave of COVID, that is mid of 2020, that is the orange line. As you see, and probably this is a pattern that we will see also later, something changed. So the impact of COVID is something that you can really measure also looking at payment performances. So the invoices have been paid slower, in a slower way. That means that China dropped from 26% of on-time payment to 23.8%. Philippines. In Philippines, at the end of December 2019, where 43.3% of companies were paying on time their invoices, this percentage in only 6 months, we have seen let's say a dramatic reduction because we are dropping to 38%. Thailand is one of the companies that really experienced the most impact, dropping in terms of promptness of payment from 53%. That means that more than one company out of two were paying promptly before COVID. Now only 38% of companies are able to pay promptly their invoices. Hong Kong really didn't experience dramatic change, 33% against 30%. What is surprising is India, in which India, they were, before COVID, 34% of companies were paying late, and then this percentage increased at 50%. We may discuss which are the causes behind these, and I will take an opportunity to share some thoughts also when we will be talking about Europe on this. Israel really, I would say, not much affected, 18 against 17, and again Taiwan. Taiwan could be called as the superstar of Asia, 75%. 3 companies out of 4 were paying on time, and they're still paying on time. Okay, so we were looking at how many companies were paying on time. Now let's focus on how many companies are really paying very late. So we are focusing onto the cluster of companies that are showing a very late payment performance. So these companies are paying on average with more than 90 days of delays compared to what is written into the invoice. So China, as you see again, the blue line is before COVID, the orange line is after COVID. You will see a kind of deterioration. So China increase 14 to 16. So 16% of companies are now paying very, very late. Philippines moved from 25% to one quarter of companies to 32%, 1 out of 3. So 1 out of 3 companies in Philippines are now paying very, very late their invoices. We will get back later to these figures. Thailand, basically double the percentage. We should see that, and we should say that it's anyway very small, these figures, but they typically double this number. Hong Kong, no impact on Hong Kong. India, again, in India, you've seen that as in the previous slide, India was increasing the performance. You will see also from here that India is also showing in the market that the companies are less prone to paying very late. So the number dropped from 32% to 16%. Israel, nothing happened, and Taiwan, I would say that it's a kind of residual figure, so very small figures about this late performance. So on this very first slide, we have understood that from companies really were getting rare and rare, and late payments had increases in the Asian region. Let's move and see the discussion. And what have you seen here is this summarized from the previous slide. We should say that India is really an exception. So negative numbers means that on-time payments have been reduced in China, Philippines, Thailand, Hong Kong, Israel, and the situation appear as better, as improved in India. Those companies that were paying over 90 days, again, increased. That is, again, an indication of situation getting worse. In China, Philippines, Thailand, nothing changed. Hong Kong and in India, they basically reduced. As you can imagine, in here, there will be something, another cluster, that are those companies that are paying a little late against the payment program. So moving to the situation in the Philippines, and we can also compare with what was happening in 2018. And this comparison is very important because if you would simply stay with what happened in on the blue in this light blue bar against the yellow bar, you will see the change, the normal change, I would say the organic change year over year. So that means that if you compare to 2 years ago, to 2018, and last year, 2019, anyone would have said that the situation in Philippines was getting better and better because prompt payment were, let's say, increasing 42% to 43%. So more companies were paying on time and getting to these over 30 days, less companies were paying over 30 days. So if you simply were comparing the situation, we would have said that, okay, in Philippines, companies are getting getting better and better in terms of payment performance. And then COVID happened. And you will see really here the impact of COVID from these figures. These 38% means that the situation has worsened and we are getting in a worse position compared to 2 years or maybe 3 years ago. So really the COVID did have an impact, a huge impact in the economy. And nothing really changed compared to the small payment, the small delay payment. So those invoices that are paid, let's say, with 5 days of delays, that are really not a problem. But as you see here, the percentage of companies that started paying, that are now paying very, very late, has really increasing against the previous year and also the year before. So that is really a clear indication you can measure from the impact of COVID in the economy of the payment of the invoices. Let's move also and see the split by size of company. Which are the company that are really experiencing the best behavior or the better behavior? I would say that, okay, if you look at which company are paying by due date, so far, micro company, the smallest company, are the ones that are showing better performances. So more than 50% of the companies, the micro, the very small companies, are paying on time. So if you have clients that are micro company, you can expect the prompt payment. And this company in this cluster, only 30% is paying with the, let's say, big delay over 30 days. The situation is changing when we are going in a different size of the company. So let's jump to the opposite side. Let's look at what large companies are doing in the market. Only 27% of them are paying their invoices on time. That means that if you are having a large client, not a large client, if you have clients that are large company, these are paying you on time only 27% of cases. And then you can experience that roughly half of them, 48%, will pay you with a very great delay in terms of invoices. As a comment, this is quite not surprising because typically micro companies, small companies need to really, and this is quite dramatic, this need to fuel the supply chains in terms of cash flow. So we are expecting, and everyone is expecting, everyone is pushing them to be faster in payment. So this is an area in which a lot of stress is being put by the system. Look at the industry. We are still in Philippines, and again, which are the industries that are really performing the best and the worst? Okay, as you can see, construction industry is showing the fastest payment. So 57% of payment of the companies that are belonging to construction industries are prompt, and 31% are late. This is dropping to the manufacturing industry, 28%, and then 27% in transport distribution. And I would say that the worst sector from this slide is the finance services, that is showing only 23% of payments that are prompt and 53% of payment that are really late. So again, why is it important to understand that these figures? Because looking at this kind of payment study, you can really understand whether is it the industry or is it the your client that is problematic. So you can also take countermeasure. You can really work on credit policies in order to really try to keep the control of what is happening in your client base. Let's move on to the trend. So again, let's compare which are the industry in which we had the most significant changes in the number of companies that are paying late. So if you look at the cluster of companies that are paying late, the largest variation, the largest impact of the COVID was happening in the wholesale. 26% of changes. That means that the wholesale sector, the number of companies that are paying late did increase by 26%. Then 24% in the construction, services and manufacturing 50%, transport distribution, and the industry in which we did see the less impact is the finance service. from the previous slide, if you remember, the final service is the sector that is the industry that is paying the slowest way, but is the sector that has been impacted the less from the COVID situation. I'm quickly then moving to the last part of the presentation, in which we can also see which is the impact of the first wave of COVID in the Asia. So prompt payments, Taiwan, after the first wave of COVID, is still probably the best, not probably, is still the best country, the best market where you would like to have clients, because those are paying the 74% of cases on time. So if you have a client there, you may expect that the payments are on time. India, 50% of the payments are on time. Singapore, Thailand, and the last prompt company you see here is Israel. Philippines is, I would say, in the middle with Thailand, 38%. So it's really taking the mid position. Look at which are the territories in which you will find the highest concentration of companies that are paying later. And when I say late, I mean with more than 30 days of past due. Again, we see Taiwan, we find very few of them, getting higher to Singapore. Again, Singapore, you will expect really to have a great credit management capabilities in order to manage the credit and DSO in Singapore. And unfortunately, you will see here that Philippines is again another area in which you should really focus on to the credit management, on to managing your client base with the appropriate tool in order to really being able to measure what's happening on the portfolio, what's happening in the situation, because it's really area in which having clients does really require a lot of attention, a lot of energy in managing the cash flow. Let's see what's happening in Europe. So in the other part of the world, I would say that Denmark, everyone probably like to have clients in Denmark, because you issue an invoice and you will be paid 87% of time promptly. Then you move with Poland, Netherlands. Netherlands really was really showing an improvement with COVID. Russia, they suffered a reduction of 3%, but they're still good market, good territory. Then Sweden jumped up by 9 percentages to 65%. And then Germany, Hungary, Finland, Slovenia, Spain, United Kingdom, France. So Spain, France are really suffering because they have shown a reduction. Belgium, there is also Italy. Italy, 35%, not big impact from the COVID. Russia, Ireland. Ireland should have been here, this area, but really suffer a drop of 70%. So if you are having clients within your portfolio coming from Ireland, you are maybe expecting a drop in the performance of prompt payments. And the last country is Romania. Again, Romania should have been here, but really dropped to the end of these. When someone is showing figures and says, okay, this is good, this is bad, we should always comment in some way why in a company, in a market, we may see 87% and I mean, Denmark and Germany are very close, or Denmark and Italy and Belgium, these are very close in terms of distance. Why the situation is different? Why Italy didn't suffer any change? We should always consider what is the what is the situation there? We should always consider if there is any help from the state that is helping companies to survive in the short term. So there are countries in which the government really were pumping in money in order to help companies. So that means that no short-term impact has been detected, or there are countries in which the culture is really preventing these, or there are countries in which there is not the culture, because in Denmark it's a matter of culture, but in Germany it's a matter of attitude. Everyone in Germany is really double checking with their clients and what they're doing. So everyone is really doing the X-ray of a company when they are invoicing the company. So they are taking business information. They're really willing to analyze everything from a company, from a client. So it's a matter of country, it's a matter of culture, it's a matter of approach. I want to control everything. Could be a matter of help from the states that is really helping to see what's happening at these very high level figures. Let's see in the world, just to compare what's happening. And so we also see USA, you also see Canada and Africa. Again, this is what's happening on the prompt payments. That is Taiwan. Again, we have seen already that Taiwan is really very virtuous in the prompt payment. South Africa did suffer a big impact from the COVID, dropping from the previous 78% to 63%. USA is 54%, India 50%, we've seen Mexico 50%, Singapore again. These countries, Singapore, Thailand, and Philippines, and Egypt were really suffering big drops in terms of prompt payment. And that's it. This is the last slide, and I really wanted to give you an overview of what is happening in the Philippines territory, in Asia, in the world, which is the impact of COVID. For sure, this is the first wave, and the payment performances are quite slow in adapting to what's happening, but being them so slow, it's very impressive to see that only 6 months of first wave of COVID was able to really give this huge impact on some territories. Suggestion, a final suggestion from my side is please use this data. You can download this data. You will be able to receive the payment study. It's really important to understand where your clients are belonging in terms of size, in terms of industry, in terms of territories, because it's very important to understand whether you're really doing a risky business because you're really picking companies from a specific industry or specific area, or simply the way in which you are managing your client. Maybe you can put more attention onto some companies, or maybe you are stressing too much some of your clients. So it's always a good way to benchmark what's happening within your portfolio using these external data that is coming from this payment information. Thanks for your time, and I'm really happy to answer to any question you may have.
Thank you very much, Simone. We do have some questions. One question in particular coming from Ms. Jerica Chua. This is a question regarding the payment behavior that we observe in the Indian market. So her question is, why does the Indian payment on time versus last year? Is it attributable to changes or the change of supplier terms from the example 30 days to COD, to cash on delivery, I guess? Do we have any particular insight in terms of the behavior from the what we've observed in the Indian market?
Yes, in fact, this is very important because, and I'm also seeing that there is previous question about terms and condition. We do really measure if a company is paying on time against the terms that have been agreed. That means that if you are shifting the terms because it is being agreed against the parties, or there is a law that say, okay, you can shift the terms by 50 days, that means that you will give more time to pay, but we are measuring the delay against the forecasted payment. That means that it's really important every time to understand which are the agreed terms. There are also some insight about how these terms are shifting, but we are measuring the delay of payment. So yes, if we are shifting payments delay, we are somehow hiding if we are shifting the payment terms, we are somehow hiding the effect of the delay of payment, and we should also consider this. What is important again is that no matter the payment terms, if a company is start paying late, it's anyway a negative event that you should consider, is a negative effect you should consider. But yes, in some countries we have seen a shifting in the payment terms, being larger, being more comfortable, and again is when you are pulling the rope from two sides. There is a buyer that is willing to have the money faster, the client that is willing to pay later. You should find a way in which you agree. So if you agree the payment terms, what is important is that if you do promise to pay at a certain date, this is going to happen. This is what is a funding pillar of being able to forecast and manage and control the cash flow.
Thank you very much, Simone. And not to put you on the spot, but we have another question that was sent privately. I know that the payment study report is a report that we generate on a yearly basis. Know if we are currently studying or generating a report for the second half of 2020. And that report may be available to our participants.
Yes, the payment study is something that is usually happening around April or May. So you may expect to see in this new edition that is going to be issued say in a couple of months, in 3 months, also an insight about what is the second wave of COVID. So we really are planning to really analyze and do describe what the COVID impact has on this economy. We'll for sure focus about the shifting of terms. We will for sure focus about what is also the impact of the heights of each state that is really pushing in order to sustain the economy. So this is really, I think that it's really an objective way to describe a phenomena that is really at the global scale, that it's really bring an impact on the globe.
Thank you very much, Simone. I'm sure that our audience, as well as Sir Chris, later on in the panel discussion would have several. For the time being, we will let you go and proceed with our next speaker. We'll see you in the panel discussion.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. It's really important for us to be able to understand how our customers and our suppliers are getting paid and how they are paying their other customers and suppliers, right? I mean, business right now, trade is global. So that's why we are quite interested and very happy that Simone showed not only the payment behavior for the Philippine market, but also for the region and the rest of the world. But to zoom in and to talk to us on how we can manage and what we can do to strengthen our policies from a credit and collection standpoint here in the Philippines, we have invited one of our esteemed professor, Mr. Reynaldo Lugtu. Sir Reynaldo is currently the CEO and founder of Hungry Workhouse. He's also a professor at the De La Salle University. Sir Ray, thank you very much for joining us. I will allow you to share your screen now.
Thank you, Arden. Happy to be here and share some insights. Let me share my screen. So, are you seeing my slide now?
Yes, Sir Ray, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, thank you, everyone. Let me just proceed with this. So, thank you for having me. CRIF, Duns and Bradstreet. So I will talk about getting paid on time, credit and collection strategies, and tactics during the pandemic. So Arden mentioned that I'm a founder and CEO of Hungry Workers. So this company is a consulting firm. We give advisory and consulting to a number of clients in Philippines as well as abroad in the areas of strategy, technology, process, and people. And I'm also a lecturer in the Graduate School of De La Salle University. What we have seen in the previous presentation by Simone is quite interesting, and I want to connect my presentation to his presentation. So the repercussions of COVID, no, we know that right now, so there's been a cash flow constraints or insufficient liquidity that we have seen in the market, in the Philippine market. We have seen that in the report of Simone, where there's a degradation in the payment terms. So there was a delay of payments or default on payments at worst. And some customers are delaying also or defaulting on payments to their suppliers. And even more, some customers are having their businesses shut down. So a lot of SMEs have shut down their businesses. Now, these collection strategies during COVID and during this pandemic need to be radically different from what we have been used to doing before COVID, because this change is unprecedented. Never in the history of our lifetime have we experienced this kind of crisis and this kind of recession globally and in the Philippines. So that's why we need to do things differently. Now, I'll talk about the strategies in the new normal. And these strategies include number one, applying customer segmentation, which is important because not all customers are created the same. Use data analytics after you have these segmentations. Third is to streamline your operations and processes to make it aligned to your collection strategies. And lastly, to apply an omni-channel communication strategy. After these strategies, after we dwell into these strategies, I will talk about some tactics which you can apply. Now, first is applying customer segmentation or even a supplier segmentation. So segmentation is important because, again, Simone pointed that industries have different paying habits. So we need to segment companies based on their industries. But one segmentation is also credit risk based on customer segmentation. So one way is segmenting them based on industries or the size of the company. So that's one way of segmentation. Another segmentation is payment behaviors of the segmented customers. It may be based on industry. It may be again based on the size of the company. So you can segment them based on this metric. One segmentation approach is the strategic value of the customer to your company. Some companies are important to you. Some their business relationship with you may be small. So it's important to segment the strategic importance of that company to your company. The industry impact of the COVID on customers. So again, Simone's data would be very insightful when you segment. Statement from a third-party expert such as an accounting firm. So you can get insights from accounting firms as well. Evidence requesting governmental support. So government has been providing support to companies, especially SMEs. So evidence of that can likewise be a one way of segmentation. Bank statements showing insufficient balance. And then lastly, data around how the buyer is paying its other suppliers. You may have some intelligence on the the behavior of the supplier of the or the customer when it comes to paying other other customers. So these are the different ways of how you can segment your customers or suppliers. Now, you can also segment them on these three ways. No? So once you have segmented them, you can segment them as good accounts. No? These accounts are, where the pandemic is unlikely to influence their payment behavior. So some companies are still paying promptly. No? The customers are in a strong financial position and pose almost no credit risk. So we have seen this, in such companies as tech companies in the Philippines, telecom companies, and even banking. I was surprised that in Simone's report, banking is delaying many of the payments. But in our observation in the Philippine market, many of the bigger banks are paying promptly. COVID-19 has minimal or no effects on these sectors. So these good accounts, are still experiencing some good business, as we have seen in sectors like telecommunications, technology sectors, and even BPOs. BPOs, in the outsourcing sectors. Now there are also fair accounts. These fair accounts are such that the pandemic could adversely influence their payment behavior during and shortly after the outbreak. So these are moderate accounts. The customers are in a relatively good financial position and pose low credit risk. And COVID-19 could affect their sectors negatively, both directly and indirectly. So we have seen this in some sectors in financial services. Some retail are also in this sector, especially those engaged in e-commerce. Poor accounts, on the other hand, are those companies where the pandemic threatens their solvency and could cause them to default on payments in the near future. These customers are in a weak financial position and pose considerable credit risk. Many of these are in the hospitality business and allied industries like entertainment, and also some retail companies who are unable to adapt to this new normal. So these companies are also affected by COVID directly and severely. All right, so you can segment your clients or suppliers into the previous segmentation that I have mentioned. And once you have done that, you can also segment them into these segmentations. Now, what's the purpose of segmentation? Now, this is to optimize your collection efforts because you have limited resources, especially right now where many of the collection departments are working from home. It's important to optimize the effort and to maximize the impact to your company. So with these segmentations, when you have defined the segmentations, this is now the time to use data analytics and use analytics to assess and optimize your accounts receivables portfolio using that segmentation parameters. And optimization and collections can be applied across the different stages of the collection and recovery cycle. So if you have the life cycle, you can apply this different segmentations. And if those segments display certain behaviors like the poor accounts, you can now focus your efforts, collection efforts, into these types of accounts. It also helps evaluate and discover successful decision strategies which meet business objectives and cater to the conflicting constraints. So by using data analytics and applying data analytics to those segments, you can have decision strategies on what accounts you can escalate to their management, and what accounts you can use channels where it's less labor intensive. So we'll use some case studies. So one case study I noted are those in India. And interestingly, I want to connect this to Simone's presentation. While Simone, commented that it's based on the changes in payment terms. But one thing I noted in our analysis is that many of these Indian companies are using data analytics now. India is known as a hotbed of technology globally. You have all the big system integrators there, like the WNS, and all these big tech companies. So one case study, which I saw in my course of research, is a leading utility company, which it increases their debt collection by 50% with predictive analytics. So this is only one case study, and there's a lot in India. So the challenge with this company is that the client wanted to optimize collection processes, to improve recovery, and create strategies to manage customer write-offs more effectively. Again, optimization using parameters like segmentation. You can overcome this challenge. So the solution is transformation of the client's collection processes by leveraging on predictive analytics and enhancing the customer interaction strategy. So by understanding the segments of the customers which needs more attention, which needs moderate attention, then you can plan out a customer interaction strategy. This is where the communication comes in. Once you have these analytics, and by applying data analytics, the benefits to this client is that they have achieved a 50% improvement in debt collection in 3 months. In 3 months at the start of the pandemic. This is interesting. Again, it may be non-conclusive, but it's a hypothesis to ponder with. By using data analytics, you can optimize the collection efforts and bring down the averages. It can bring down significantly the averages by helping you in decision making, which clients to focus on, and which communication strategies to apply. So with this case study, a propensity to pay predictive data model exclusively for residential customers. Again, this is a utilities company. So this model, the model created assigned a propensity to pay score. So there is a scoring on the propensity to pay. Again, it can be good, fair, or poor. The propensity to pay. And the customer classification into high, medium, and low propensity to pay segments was based on the basis of that scoring. Again, applying segmentation. And the focus was, delinquency management strategies for each segment. You may have, you may apply, different strategies for low propensity to pay, and different strategies also for the medium as well as to high. Again, the purpose of this is optimizing your limited resource in the collection department. So the customer segmentation prioritization, prioritize the customer segments based on these propensity to pay scores and the amount of outstanding debt. So that's another variable. So propensity to pay scores and the outstanding debt. And where the rigorous cost benefit analysis to streamline operational and financial human resource activities. With all these segmentations, now the company was able to undertake a cost benefit analysis, which leads to streamlining of your operations, assigning resources which need more resources. And then lastly, with this predictive scoring, you can engage with customers that require engagement more. So this is an interesting case study. And there's a number of case studies in India. Again, my hypothesis is that Indian companies, especially big ones, use predictive data analytics. Right? And then last in the action of these companies was a performance monitoring. It's not enough to use data analytics. It has to be integrated in the performance monitoring of the collection department. So that is data analytics. The third is streamline operations and processes. So you can use data analytics to to enable you to streamline operations and processes. But you can also, without data analytics, you can also streamline by understanding again this segmentation of your customers and suppliers. So a comprehensive analysis of policy, insight, people, processes, tools, technology, data, management information, and data analytics and strategy. Again, to gain maximum operational efficiency. So these times require a streamlining of these components, and then monitoring your accounts receivable with key metrics for maintaining liquidity. So your key metrics can be those that I have mentioned in the segmentation. So examples are account receivable turnover, days sales outstanding, accounts receivable aging, amongst other metrics could be included in a regular report. You are revising your accounts receivable policies and processes if necessary. And because there might be changes in the method your company invoices. Again, because many of the employees are working from home, many of your clients and suppliers are working from home, there may be changes in company invoice policies, which you need to adapt to your processes. So that is streamlining operations, and then adjust collections operations accordingly based on the availability of your workforce. Again, those working from home and flexible working hours. Now, the fourth strategy is applying an omni-channel communication strategy. Once you have segmented and analyzed different segments into different propensities, or from fair, good and poor accounts, this is now the time to apply omni-channel communication strategies. So contacting the right customers through the right channel at the right time. Organizations can also adapt their contact strategies quickly to enable customers to auto-resolve on omni-channel platforms. So you can have omni-channel platforms if your collection efforts are automated. You can use also non-automated channels, like messaging platforms. Ensure that all channels are in scope, included in your service, including auto voice, SMS, WhatsApp, digital direct API, where you may have your applications connected to your customers, email, mobile app, or any online applications. All right, so those that's applying omni-channel communication strategies. So we have discussed the 4 strategies. All right. Now, what specific tactics can you use? So these are now collection tactics which you can use after applying these strategies. So one is, we know all of this. So becoming firm. This is the time to be firm. Never end a call without a confirmation or when to expect a payment. So this is important. This is we apply this as well in our company. Be focused. So be focused on your objective. Once you have segmented, focusing on these strategies per segment to overcome your objectives. Send invoices on weekends, but don't pester them often. So sending them on weekends may be one strategy, so that you are different from the other suppliers. Escalate to the manager or director for payment as a last resort. Now, this is an important point because ultimately companies decide, they escalate to their bosses. It is the bosses who ultimately decide whether to delay payment or not. All right, so it's important that you make this the last resort. If everything else have failed, then you escalate to the boss, no, of your client or supplier. No? So, relationship counts, no, in this case. No? It's important that you maintain, cordial and good relationship with suppliers and clients, so that when the time comes, when you escalate, no, then you can, facilitate the collection. And then lastly, no, an important tool in Philippines is connect with customers on LinkedIn and keep in touch. Now, LinkedIn now has become a big platform in Philippines since the pandemic. No? In 2018, no, there was about only 6 million accounts in LinkedIn. And in 2021, it's forecasted to be 11 million, as companies move to the platform to connect to customers and suppliers. It is an important professional networking site where you can connect with your customers and suppliers and decision makers in the company in order to facilitate your collection effort. So LinkedIn is an important asset now that you can use. Now, in the end, no, once we have applied the strategies and tactics, in the end, we have to show empathy. Empathy pays back. Everyone is in a difficult time. Everyone is in a difficult time. So with empathy, companies will stay with you as your customer for generations to come. So we have to be conscious. We have to be empathic of customers facing difficulties. So, this is where we apply a balancing act in order to meet our objectives. No, it's a matter of averages. No, in the end. So treat those customers, no, who are having difficulties, no, with empathy, and those who are capable, no, of paying early, no, should be the focus of the effort. In the end, when you average them out, no, based on the segmentation efforts, you will achieve your objective in your organization. So apply empathy where it applies. No. Everyone needs understanding nowadays. No. And if you help customers during the tough times, they will remember and continue the goodwill. They will become loyal to you. Right? We have been applying this as well, with our suppliers and customers. And I've noted also in the statistics and studies presented by Simone that, interestingly, big companies are delaying payment. Big companies, imagine that. Big companies with the resources, and micro companies and small companies are even paying better than the big companies. And this was the subject of my article last year, where when big companies are delaying payments, we have to appeal to their social responsibility. I've used this tactic, where when I escalated to one of my big clients, I appeal to their sense of social responsibility. Smaller suppliers to big companies need to be taken care of as part of their ecosystem, as part of their stakeholder. So, we have to appeal to big companies, appeal to their social responsibility. And I gave examples, a lot of great examples out there, in the US and in the Western world, where big companies are playing their social responsibility by paying earlier than the required prompt payment to their suppliers, because the smaller suppliers need the cash flow most. So you can use empathy and combine this with the social responsibility angle if your clients and suppliers are the big companies. So that ends my presentation, and I hope you picked up one thing or two. And thank you. I turn this over to Arden.
Thank you very much, Professor Lugtu. That was a very insightful and actionable presentation. Sir, we just have a question coming in sa ating Q&A box. Question for Ms. Jerica Chua. Does engaging in receivable financing in this time of pandemic advisable to manage the risk? Is that something that you will advise for companies to do?
Yes, in fact, it was in my more detailed slides. So again, we have to apply this based on segmentation. Not all customers are created equal. Segmentation is the key, right? So we apply receivables financing, to certain segments, no, that we think will benefit from this, no. But you have to average that out with those big companies, no? Big companies that are doing good, no, during this time, no? Again, a lot of big companies in the Philippines, especially the conglomerates, are still performing good, relatively better, no, than their peers in the region. So by segmentation, no, we can apply those strategies and other strategies, no, in order to achieve our objective. Again, segmentation will help you achieve the law of averages, no. It will average out, and in the end you will achieve your collection objectives.
Thank you very much, Professor. This is a question that was sent privately in our chat box. We understand that, in terms of segmentation between good, fair, and poor, that it depends on your company's risk appetite, right? But is there like any best practice that you can offer from a percentage standpoint? Do you do like 20% good, and then maybe you can do like 40 or 50% fair, and then the rest will fall on that bad segment or poor segment category?
I will use the insights, shared by Simone, no? So that insight is invaluable, no? So you can segment your clients based on industry, no? So Simone presented nicely some statistics, no? And you can segment based on industry. You can segment based on the historical payment behavior, no? And you can also segment in other aspect, no? Again, segmentation is the key, no? There's no clear cut way of segmenting. It depends again on your risk appetite, but segmenting it, having a risk rating for each of the client based on the segments will help you focus more efficiently on the collection effort. And again, once you segment, focus on your resources, in the end, you will have a likely, a more likely achievement of your objectives. It's a law of averaging. It is a law of averaging. Some customers, some clients will need more time to pay, where you have renegotiated payment terms, while others you can negotiate with them for prompt payment, right? In the end, it averages, no.
Thank you very much, Professor. And I'm sure our guests for this afternoon's webinar would have more questions for you during our panel discussion. Before we pause for a break, we would like to pose a question this time. And the first question is, we want to understand your current average payment for your customer. Again, Simone was talking earlier about our Done Trade program, wherein we collect payment behavior based on invoice payment terms. And we just want to understand at CRIF Dun & Bradstreet and to hear from you, our participants this afternoon, what is your current payment schedule or collection schedule for your customer? Does it fall within the 30-day time frame? Is it between 30 to 60 days, which is the average payment and collection terms for Philippine companies? Or are you able to do up to 90 days in terms of invoice terms? We put a time duration of about a minute for you to answer your poll question. If you are currently unable to answer or are not able to see the poll question, you can look at your WebEx platform, whether you're viewing us from your laptop or your mobile devices. Just click on the poll so that you can answer the question.
The cabling, mechanical, and even the furnitures as specifically approved by clients. So that's what DB&B is all about. Who are our clients? We design, build workplaces for our clients, such as BPO companies, local and international banks and finance companies. For the past couple of weeks, we've been working with banks, both local and offshore. We also have insurance companies, consumer goods, educational institutions, health and pharmaceutical and wellness companies. So in the future, maybe you are planning to put up your office here in the Philippines, you may want to consider our company. So these are the list of the services that we do offer, and we are sure that our architects and professionals are very much qualified. So just in case you're interested, you may contact us or may drop by our office. Next slide, please. Yeah, these are the of the services that we do provide. Okay, so let's proceed with the how we handle challenges in construction, especially nowadays. So in a construction company, we have this, the ideal scenario is that we just follow the terms. We follow the terms. For our industry, usually we have a certain percentage for down payment, like for example, 25% down upon signing of contract, and then followed by 1 or 2 progress billings, of course, as work or services progresses. Then finally, the retention or the final payment for those. For our projects, it's usually, the timeline is 3 to 6 months. Since we are not on a high-rise building construction, we are into like one or two, 3 floors, but not the high-rise. I think finance and accounting is different on that level. So that's the ideal scenario. However, just like other industries, there are also challenges. So for us, what are the reasons on why payment is being delayed by client? Number one, there are back jobs or requests for minor works. Of course, even though you have reached a certain percentage of work, if client would want to change a specific, say, color, or if they want to change specific item, of course you have to accommodate that request first before they would pay you. So in our case, we have big clients, VIP clients, so we are targeting to retain them. So we are very kind with them because the goal is to keep these clients and to have repeat transactions with them. So number one. Number two, pending documentations. This is very important because in our case, the purchase order is being collected, and we have to take note that purchase order is the starting point of the transaction. It's the proof of requisition. That's why it should be made available at an instance, right? So we have to make sure that it's already signed, it's already prepared, so that in the future when we prepare our billing, client will look for this, for that, for that. It's a very big hassle. That's why I encourage and I often tell my staff to always ask for purchase order, and even with our supplier, because that's the audit trail, that's the very source document that we have for sales transactions. So along with other documents, of course. So all these accounting documents are very important. So we should bear that in mind, and we should have a organized filing system for those, be it manual or electronic. Okay. And then the third one is for additional or variation orders. These are services that are outside main contract. So it may be an additional one or change of or other additional or customization or repairs, anything which would involve additional work that's outside the contract. So they would want it be done first before they would pay you the invoices already due. So those are what we call the extras, and of course, as VIP clients, we grant their wishes up to a certain extent. So we should have those premise on when to let go of this request, and when to be firm on your terms. Okay, so the next slide, please, Kim. So how do we handle these challenges given those three? Number one, we see to it that we communicate with client. I agree with Sir Ray's point that we should have this very polite empathy, and then what's the other one? Yeah, empathy is very important. I always tell my staff to be direct, but see to it that emails and communications are always polite, because number one, it reflects the culture of the company. Even with clients, even with suppliers, there should always be respect. And true enough, you will harvest those in the future. That's goodwill, and that's very important. So you see to it that terms properly communicated to the operations team, of course, for their immediate action. Otherwise, we will not be paid. And then the second one, as possible, concept of the project, we make sure that documents are in place. This is the one I'm referring to a while ago. PO, what else? Delivery receipts, service invoices, all of those are very important. And sometimes, or most of the time, those are being neglected. When we are being audited by external auditor, all of these are being asked. So might as well organize these documents and make sure that everything's supported. So transactions and collections will be smoother. Just to add also, based on experience, given that we are dealing with big companies, another suggestion also is that we communicate first with our contact persons, because these VIP clients don't want to be pestered by lots of emails or phone calls. So establish a particular contact person and then communicate with them constantly. Because in our case, we ask the architects or the project managers before contacting the client directly. So without go signal, we can follow up. So we are also valuing their space. So that's also another important point to consider. Okay, so how was CRIF DB&B, Dun & Bradstreet Philippines, able to help us? When I onboarded in 2016, so I noticed that we have this very large past due accounts. So I knew then that we have to implement improvements and reinforce our terms, and what else? Reinforce terms and be more aggressive in collection. So luckily, DB&B approached us and introduced their platforms. These are the two platforms that we have with them. Actually, it's turning 4 years this coming March. So number one is the CRIF DB&B's Payment Performance Insight. It allows our company to access their particular portal and determine the client's payment behavior. And from there, we determine the best terms that we can offer, given the payment behavior that they have, given the timeline that they would that it would take them to pay us or to pay their creditors in general. Number two, which also very important, very useful to us, is the done trade sticker. We use this with our invoices every time we do send out billings to our clients. And as we also implement the collection letters, we put those stickers in, and somehow clients would feel that they are being monitored at a certain level. Not that in depth, but they know that there's a certain, we are tied up with a certain firm that is credible, and so they better behave or might as well improve their payment performance, which would have an impact on their image also. So using this program for the past 4 years has improved our aging structure. We used to have 30-70, 30 being current and then 70 past due. We were able to make it 70-30 in current and then 30 past due. But it was not at an instant. It's a process. And there should be collective efforts, like, for example, reinforcement of collection letters. So we do send out first, second, and third collection letters or reminder letters with an interval of 2 to 3 weeks, depending on clients' responsiveness. So, and so we also use the stickers for that. That's the way to communicate. And even with the wordings of the collection letters, it's very professional and polite. And we should remind clients that they are important to us. We would want to maintain a healthy relationship with them. And the last resort is the demand letter, of course. We don't want to reach that point and even endorse it to our lawyer. So yes, currently we are at 60% current, 40% past due, but I find this still acceptable because given the situation that we have right now, it's very critical. And I think the key term there is resilience. Resilience and communication and empathy. Yes, empathy to our clients, empathy to our suppliers. We are all doing business and we would all want to survive in this business. We would all want to survive in this pandemic. Yeah, the goal is to make ends meet at this period of time, and when the economy is up again, then it's time to set profitability high. But at this point, for me, it's a matter of making ends meet. So I hope you got something from my presentation. You learned something from my presentation. Anyways, you may contact us. You may visit our office here at Ayala Avenue, Makati, or visit our social media platforms. My presentation.
Ms. Joanna, I'm sure our participants and guests this afternoon would have some questions for you as well during our Q&A and panel discussion. But before we proceed to the panel discussion, we just want to ask our attendees this afternoon. And that question is, what part of your finance department or credit and collection? This poll is now being flashed on your screen, so we encourage you as well, invite you to answer the question. And the choices that you have, you can select multiple. Is it portfolio management that you would like to improve? Is it credit check during customer or supplier onboarding? Is it collection, credit and collection, or is it process automation? Again, that poll is being flashed on your screen. Thank you very much for answering. Again, these insights will be helpful not only to us, but also for the panelists this afternoon so that we can help you grow your business. At this point, we would like to invite Professor Lugtu, Simone, Rampichini, and Ms. Joanna, as well as Sir Chris, to manage our panel discussion. And while they are preparing, I question for you, because some of our guests are answering exactly what the payment performance platform, the PPI platform that Ms. Joanna was talking about, as well as with the non-trade program, is all about. Because Simone presented earlier the aggregate for each markets where we are present in, right? And some of the customers are asking if we have certain performance behavior analytics on the pharma side, and I'm sure that they will have some questions as well for other industries and sector.
Thanks, Arden. Thanks for giving me a chance to address that. It's quite a curious, program. Like Simone mentioned, it started way back in 1972, but for us here in the Philippines, we implemented it in 2010. Now, in its at its core, it's simply a matter or a platform that allows the participants to share payment behavior of their customers with other participants. Sort of saying that, you can now compare notes in terms of how fast customers are paying you and how fast customers are paying the other organizations as well. Now that allows you a few key things like you can now understand from like what Simone is discussing from an industry specific standard, which industries are increasing or decreasing in terms of paying habits, no, in terms of performance. And it also allows you to understand from your own portfolio which areas you have in terms of the ones that are at most risk. So especially during times of crisis, you would notice that your own portfolio would sometimes go up and sometimes go down in certain areas. Now, if you have PPI, then that allows you now to understand your entire, customer mix and which areas you need to focus on a lot more than the others. But yeah, at the moment, the PPI is free. It's a give to get program, but I couldn't commit that it's going to be free forever. But for definitely for the participants, that's Joanna, who has been with us since 2016. For her, it's going to be free forever. But for the others, yeah, I could not promise that at the moment. So if anyone in the call is interested, please do send Arden and his team a message so that we could include you in the participants that are joining the trade program. Thanks, Arden.
Thanks, Sir Chris.
Okay, so should we proceed to the Q&A? Maybe just to kick things off, I'm quite happy about the audience right now because they're very interactive. They have already posed quite interesting questions. But I have a few notes of my own. If you don't mind, I'd like to engage with the panelists themselves first. The first question that I have is for Simone Rampichini. We've been doing the payment study for quite some time, and I don't know if we had the payment study during a time of crisis that's different from the pandemic right now. If we had one, I mean, the first question is, did we have one during, say, the Asian financial crisis? And what are the commonalities that we've observed, and what are the differences that we've seen in terms of the payment study? And you can say that, no, we haven't done the payment study during the Asian financial crisis, but it's fine. But
No,
yeah.
I mean that I remember very well because during the financial crisis, we were really monitoring closely what was the situation. Luckily, since this program is present over a lot of time, over a long time, it's really helpful in understanding what is really, which are the effect of an impact on the system as on the payment performance that everyone is experiencing every day. At that time, I remember that most of the, let's say, the way out for the companies were in changing the payment terms. We were really detecting at that time that payment terms were diluted over the time in order to keep both parties satisfied with the payments. At that time, I also remember that some government really jumped in with some law obliging some specific payment terms and trying to protect in some way some industry. I remember that the food industry was one of the most protected one at the time with legal terms that were more strict than the previous. So probably in this time, again, we do see a change in terms. We do see more help from the government into the system. So there is, let's say, bias effect of the aid from the states that are really helping into the system. So probably this is the biggest difference compared to the financial crisis.
Excellent. Thanks, Simone. It does tie in a little bit with what Professor Ray talked about in terms of empathy, and also Joanna, because when we were talking about, some of your customers might need to have an extended term, and just so that you could, allow them still to operate. That
So
does
this,
speak a little bit about it.
yes, that this empathy is really important because uh, in some way, and this is something that I really like to every time talk about, the success of my company is the success of all the peers that are really joining with myself. That means that my clients, my supplier, these are really the ones on which I'm funding the success of my company. So as a company
Mm,
alone, I cannot do anything. I am
mm,
the value of a company is really depending on the value of his client and his supply chain. So if you're really trying and you are really willing to take advantages because you are taking out something from your clients or your supplier, you are really going to kill yourself. So it's not only a matter of empathy, it's only my matter of understanding that your value is really the value of your customer base and your supplier. So you shouldn't stress too much your clients and your supplier.
wonderfully said. Very, very good answer, Simone. Thank you. Professor Ray Lugtu. Ray, hi, how are you? It's been a long time since we last met in Globe.
Yes.
I had a chance, yes, I had a chance to meet you then. I really loved your content, the one that you presented. It does seem to me like the collection strategies that you shared are something that might also be applicable post-pandemic, so when everything normalizes. Now, if there is anything that's part of the strategies that you shared that might need to be adjusted a little bit post-pandemic, give us your thoughts about that. Or is this something that these organizations can apply throughout, like institutionalized from day one, and expect it to be applicable even when things are normal?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. No. Yeah, so I think the strategies and tactics that I mentioned here, no, will be applicable even post-pandemic. But I want to highlight, no, it's interesting during the poll, no, no, the question during the poll is what areas of your finance you will focus on, and process automation and collections and follow-ups are the top. I think process automation combined with analytics, will be the key thing now. We've seen this in many organizations in the Philippines when the pandemic happened. Digitization, automation, has accelerated. No? And what started to accelerate first, no, during the start of the pandemic was all work from home setups, no? Customer setups. No? That was the first phase. No? And I think right now, companies will be moving into the back end, which includes, finance, collection department, and process automation. And process automation now will become a big thing as a second wave of automation that we will see, even starting now and even post pandemic. So digitization and process automation combined with analytics will be the key thing now during the and after the pandemic.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much. Yes, that's very, wise words coming from someone that is, in has his fingers dipped into the technology sector. Very one of the what do you call this? The idols in technology, if I may say so as well. Um, Question for Joanna. Joanna, I was very interested in the things that you shared about the changes that you had to do or the things that you had to adapt to during the pandemic. Maybe share a little bit of the experience. How long did it take for you to make those adjustments, and are there still adjustments that you do expect to do as the crisis is going on?
When it started, the challenges started May. We noticed that there are a number of good payers that were already at delay. So the key there is just constantly communicate with them and get an update. So that's it. These clients are
Mm-hmm.
very responsive, and what's important is that you will set a particular timeline or specific date on when this would be, when the invoices would be, or the payments would be collectible. So you also update your forecast, so you would be on the same page. Yeah.
Right.
So
So,
that, I think it's
what?
around 3 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months adjustment, but still,
Okay. And still adjusting. Do you
yeah,
still
yeah.
see? Okay. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Good. Very good. Thanks, Joanna.
Mhm.
Okay. So, for everyone in the call, if you have questions, feel free to post it in the chat. In the meantime, I do have some questions that I want to field to the panelists coming from the audience as well. We've already done the one coming from Jerry Kachua, but there's one here coming from Carmen Sita Alano. Do you have something in the payment? I guess this one is for you, Simone. Do you have something in the payment behavior specifically of pharmaceutical companies pre and post pandemic?
I can check. If you give me a second, I will be able to get into the COVID edition. Let me see if there is anything related to. And by the way, this payment analysis is something that I really strongly suggest that you will have a look at. I'm not able to find anything right now, but I will take a note and try to provide something back to others. So we try to bring some figure.
Okay, fair. Carmencita, we'll reach out to you and perhaps to the other participants as well. We'll reach out to you once we have confirmation coming from Simone's team when it comes to the details of the information that was presented in the payment study. Question also for you, Simone, but this one's coming from a co-panelist, Ray. Ray has a question about Philippine stats. Large companies display the biggest delay in payments. Is this common globally, or is it peculiar to certain countries only?
Again, let me jump into the. Okay. It's not very common. I mean that it's something that we do observe as frequent, even if it's not a rule. This kind of split. The split you may find this kind of split mostly in some industry when really there is an approach in stressing the supply chain. So some places happening. I would not say that is common everywhere and in every industry. And again, the payment study is really able to show this. And again, I think that this is another question which we can take some notes and provide a very precise answer, because the payment study is really a wide study. And just looking at the last payment study, it's roughly 120 pages of information about industry and countries. So there are tons of information there. So again, another note I'm taking so I can write down a complete answer, and we try to answer this
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, fair. Thanks, Simone.
There is a question for our panelists that was sent privately. So we were talking earlier about preventive measures in terms of customers, right? We want to be able to identify if they are a good payer through the Don't Trade program. Once they are in the organization, Professor Lugtu spoke about segmenting your customers, providing, using available technology to automate processes within the finance department. And the question is, but now I have, 4 payers. What do I do? Like, what's the next step for me? So we're talking about prevention, we're talking about monitoring, now we're talking about perhaps recovery measures. Does any of our panelists have insight on best practices on how to approach such challenges.
Okay. Mhm.
Ms. Joanna?
Meaning to say your clients are already paid in payments.
Yes.
Okay. You may want to stretch your budget. That's a key to consider. You may want to stretch your budget until such time that you receive a confirmed collection, or you were notified of a confirmed collection. So yeah, it's about resiliency. Again, our target now is to make ends meet. Hmm?
Thank you, Ms. Joanna. Professor Lugtu, would you like to add to that?
So the question, Arden, was, what if, all of your clients, majority of clients are not paying? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think you can still segment, no matter, how, seemingly uniform the clients are. No, there will be, certain segmentation parameters that you can use. No, recovery, entails huge effort and resources from collection departments. So I would apply, certain tactics, for based on segmentation. I will study, behaviors, no matter how, slim the differences are. I will still segment them now based on industry, based on past behavior, and then focus on certain tactics, like early payment discount, tactics that you can use in order to recover.
Sir
Just
Chris,
to add also, yeah,
go ahead, Ms.
may I add also that you should double your effort, correct? Because you know that it's hard to collect nowadays. So triple your effort, exhaust your team's effort to be able to collect.
Yeah.
Sir Chris and Simone, anything that you would like to add to the
For sure. I mean that it's you should see everything as a whole. I mean that you need to prevent, you need to act, you need to react. And one thing that is usually I've seen that is underestimated is that there are great opportunity outside your customer portfolio as well. So in the way maybe you are really focused on to what's happening within your portfolio, but you are sometimes underestimating the fact that you can grow your business, you can expand, you can really navigate outside the clients you already have. In order to do this, the use of information, the use of these clusters is very important because just to put an analogy, is the same as walking through a land. If you're walking, you don't have a map, you are always reacting to what is happening. But if you have a map in which the data is telling you whether you are on the sand, whether you are on the tarmac, you are really able to really plan a grow, plan a walk, plan a trip in the best way. So my suggestion is always okay. It's part of the whole. So it's sometimes you need to react, and that is the collection and the way that you will probably address using priorities. But then again, don't forget that there is also much more outside your existing portfolio. So you may explore which are the good clients that are outside that you are not yet dealing with.
No, for me, it's quite tough to come after the three people in the panel because everything that they said was true and correct and absolutely brilliant. But maybe just something that I'd like to add, like when the time comes that you've been able to segment, and when the time comes you've been able to push as much as you can in terms of trying to collect, and when the time comes that you are now faced with a decision whether to expand your market, because that is a strategic decision in terms of including a different market set or a market segment that was not previously part of your portfolio, that needs to be taken into account as well, because if you want to be resilient, you need to be able to grow your customers as well. But once you've done all these things, at the end there are a lot of options that an organization can exercise. Like Ray was pointing to, giving, discount for those early payers, and that might incentivize some of the companies to pay earlier. But there are also, you can even explore moving to a third-party collection agency. You can explore thinking about a partnership directly with the customers that are having a hard time paying you, and therefore allowing them now to, provide some of the services that you probably need anyway. So there are a couple of things that you can do. But what's important is you need to understand who your customers are, because you cannot do that if you don't know the information about the customers and about what they can do in order to serve you or your customers, or in general, if there's something. But at the end of the day, the last thing that you'd want to do is to cut your customers, especially those that are displaying a very good behavior, payment behavior prior to the pandemic. Then they are having a hard time right now. That's the last card that you'd want to play, because there are still a lot of options that are still left unexplored when it comes to managing your credit risk.
This is a question direct to Professor Lugtu. Professor, you were talking earlier about relationship and strengthening relationship from a credit and collection standpoint, right? Earlier, this is a question regarding penalties. So is imposing penalties in the contract or in a service level agreement during client onboarding something that is acceptable? And what is your insight on applying penalty clauses whenever you're from a credit and collection standpoint?
Yeah, penalty clauses, are, I've seen, penalty clauses as acceptable, no, in the Philippine context. No, I even, signed, some contracts, being a supplier to companies. No? So, but when do you call on a penalty clause? No, I think that's the question. No? So, again, no, I'm a stickler for segmentation, no? Because if the client is an important client, no, it's a strategic client, I may think twice, applying penalty clauses, because I want to maintain that relationship with the client. If a client is a one-off client, for example, I don't foresee any repeat business, then I will apply a penalty clause. No? And now the point of this illustration is that, I will again segment them. Penalty clause is one tactic, no? Among the many tactics that Chris nicely mentioned. So, be conscious of when to apply each tactic depending on this segment of your customer or supplier.
Thank you, Professor. Question for Simone: do we have any data in terms of bad collections coming from food service companies? So I guess this is a question now on the breadth and depth of our coverage with the Don't Trade program.
The 150-page.
A quick search on food, and by the way, if when having the PPI, the payment performance, is very easy, because this question directly to the system, you can really get into the industry, what's happening. But getting into this study and simply running a search on food, the first that is coming out is India, for instance, in which there is the food store sector is losing 19 points in on-time promptness. So yes, food has been really another industry that has been impacted in India, for instance, and yes, this is for the impact of COVID. But if we stay with the overall payment study, yes, there are some insight in let me check in which country we are. Israel again, for instance, food, and see how this industry is changing behavior countries by countries.
Okay.
This data is available, yes.
Another question for Professor Lugtu. Perhaps Ms. Joanna can chime in on this as well in terms of onboarding customers, right? Unfortunately, we have observed that the bigger the company is, at least for the Philippine market, sometimes they max out the invoice onboarding clients versus what you know about them in terms of their payment habits and payment behavior.
Arden, I missed some of the questions. So onboarding big clients. What about onboarding big clients?
If you are going to onboard big clients, Professor, and you know for a fact that they are a bad payer, are there any considerations?
Got the question. Yeah. So, well, our clients, my company's clients are the big ones, no? Primarily the conglomerates. No? So, and historically, there's been some late payers, no, among big conglomerates. No? And what I do, Arden, and to the audience is really build relationship, no, with those inside, no, and also with the executives, the decision makers. Relationships are important, no, in business, especially in Philippines. No? So imagine, no, if a big client, 100 suppliers are chasing them for payment. It's going to be who will they prioritize? No? They will prioritize those who has access to relationship and decision makers. No? So it's important for the business owner and the business executives to maintain a relationship with your clients. No?
Thank you very much, Professor Lugtu. Final question that we will be able to answer before we end the webinar. Professor, I think this question is for you. Is there a basic formula for setting credit limit to avoid too much risk exposure? That's followed up with what's the best practice now in consideration also with the idea of segmentation in retail and distribution areas.
Well, I'm not familiar with any best practice right now, no. But the best practice I always share is segmentation in all aspects, no. But when you want to automate your collection effort, no, of course you need to plug in some algorithm and formulas, no. So there are available formulas and best practices out there when you want to automate your collection effort, no. And you can research on that.
Thanks very much, Professor Lugtu. At this point, we would like to ask Sir Chris. Sir Chris, if you would like to close the program for us and to give conclusions on our discussions this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you, Arden. Again, thank you, Professor Ray Lugtu. Thank you, my friend Simone Rampichini. Thank you, Joanna, for being part of this event. And thank you to everyone, all the participants for being part of the event as well. I am quite certain that you've picked up a lot of things because the content that we provided is quite rich. At least for me, in my opinion, we have been able to cover a lot of topics. Now, a few key highlights, a few key takeaways for me was, there is a sense of information deluge right now. So you have a lot of information at your fingertips, but what's important is understanding which parts of the information will be important to your organization. So when we were touching about customer segmentation, when we were touching about data analytics, all of these things require that you have a deeper understanding of the customers that you have as part of your portfolio of customers or clients. Now, for me, that one hit home because that's something that we do for our customers. We've been doing it in the Philippines since 1998. But since we're part of the CRIF network as well as the DB&B network, we've been doing it across the globe for quite some time already. So that's an expertise and experience that we can share with you if your organization needs that kind of help. The other thing that I wanted to highlight, was managing relationships. What's key right now is everyone is feeling the burden of having to contend with the adjusting your organization in order to keep your business running fully. Now, it's understandable that during the pandemic, things have slowed down a little bit because we need to adjust our organizations a little bit. But that is, at least it hit home for me because that is too internal looking. When we talk about, managing relationships with customers, when we talk about empathy, that is something that, you have to look apart from your own organization. You have to look outside, look at a broader perspective, and allow yourself some room in order to understand, everything it might feel like it needs to be handled short term, but some of the things that we decide on here and now are things that will carry on forward in the long term. So think about the managing relationships part with your customers, because that, I think, will be the key in order to be, come out of this pandemic very, very much stronger and very much, ready for any kind of crisis that will come along for your organization as well. And finally, and I love that, Ray talked about it when it comes to thinking about process automation or thinking about, in general, technology as one of the key pillars to help you streamline your organization as well as prepare your organization moving forward. That has been something that, we at CRIF, and Simone is quite familiar with it, but we at CRIF has been talking about that for quite some time already. We were talking about technology in terms of machine learning or of artificial intelligence. And all of these kinds of capabilities that we already have, we want to bring to bear for the customer. Again, it's not something, we developed overnight. It's something that has been a process for us as well. But we do believe that we have a lot of capabilities in those areas, and we want to be able to help you. So if there is any kind of interest in these areas, especially in, segmentation and data analytics, in automating some of the processes that you have in terms of managing your credit, then that might be something that's already part of our portfolio of services. It won't hurt if you want to explore it with us as well. So again, thank you everyone for being here. We are so grateful for everyone staying. We will be conducting these events quite regularly. So if you do receive an invite in the future, we do hope to see you there as well. Again, many thanks everyone. And Arden, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much to our esteemed panelists at maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Again, what to expect after this email, and that email contains a sample copy of the sample or the free report that that Simone discussed earlier, the contact information for our panelists, as well as our contact information at CRIF Dun & Bradstreet. So if you do have any questions, if you would like to explore more, you'll be receiving an email from us following this event. Again, we thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. This has been Get Paid on Time, Managing Credit and Collection, hosted by CRIF Dun & Bradstreet Philippines. And we thank you for your participation. Good afternoon, and see you on our next webinar.
Thank you also. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.